Say what you will about Pedro Pascal, but he's a damn good actor, isn't he? What is going on YouTube? Fantastic Four First Steps.
Famous around the world, please welcome the Fantastic Four.
Galactus.
What is that?
Wow. And you know, I was not looking forward to this film. I was kind of like, I don't know what they've done with the Thing. Oh, are they gonna make Sue Storm the leader of the Fantastic Four and the boss bitch, girl boss and all that? Oh, they've miscast Johnny Storm. He looks weird with the blonde wig. He just isn't gonna be the womanizing Johnny Storm that Chris Evans spectacularly played him to be in the original Fantastic Four films before Fan Four Stick. That was horrible. Let's not even talk about Fan Four Stick. And I was wrong. And to be fair, a lot of those, as some other people have been saying, a lot of those overhyped stuff from, like, you know, Access Media or journalists, even the actors themselves, the guy playing Johnny Storm, I can't remember his name now, the guy from Stranger Things, he was saying how Johnny Storm's not going to be a womanizer and all that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of like, great, you know, they were talking about how Sue's going to be the lead and all these rumors were coming out, and everybody was like, oh, there's going to be another trash heap. It's not going to be true to the original story. They're going to make Pedro Pascal, who's used to playing cuck-like characters, they're going to make him into a cuck. If you read the comics, Reed did get cucked a couple of times by Namor, or at least was about to get cucked by Namor if you read some of the comics. Like, anyway, let's not get into that. But yeah, so I thought they were going to really do that whole thing where Sue makes all the boys look bad. And no, it was actually a really good film. All the politics stuff aside, the comedy was one of the major flaws of the MCU. People always talk about how the MCU is so super woke, super annoyingly woke and all that. But it's actually the comedy, the overblown Josh Whedon, Taika Waititi fake comedy that they do, where it's just, they take any serious moment and just completely ruin it by injecting comedy where it doesn't need to be. And there's only one real time that happens, which is it was like a real dark moment in this movie. I'll get to spoilers towards the end of the review and dwell on that. But yeah, the comedy was really low in this. It's probably why so many people liked it. I mean, to be fair, this film was something interesting. I saw it kind of late. I didn't see it like opening day or whatever because I had so much other things going on, and I wanted to try and get my family together to watch it with me like I used to back in the days. It felt like old times, man.
Like old times?
It was like old times. Went with my sisters, my dad, and my fiance. We all went together to go watch it, and it was a good time. We all enjoyed it, including my dad, who falls asleep at every movie. I didn't bring them along to watch Superman because I just thought it was going to be trash. If we go back to phase 1 and phase 3 of the Marvel films, me and my sisters and my fiance, then girlfriend, we would go to almost every movie, especially when it was building up to Infinity War. That time was a special time. We would, without fail, see it. We even went to see Captain Marvel, which they weren't too keen on, you know, because it didn't look right. Like, that was when things were starting to slowly deteriorate with when Captain Marvel came out, right? And we went to see every film because you had to, and it was fun, and they were all pretty decent, you know. And then after, you know, phase 4, phase 5, the TV shows, Disney Plus shows started coming out, the quality started to deteriorate. They're more focusing on these all new, all different Marvel characters that no one really cares about. And it just felt really lackluster. Tony was gone, Captain America was gone, all the characters we cared about was gone. They were doing mantle swaps and race swap. The female characters were put at the forefront, but not in a way that made sense, not in a way where they were trying to just tell their stories. They were just trying to show the fact that we have female characters, and that's all they did. You know, they were virtue signaling basically. And we all saw that. And without me even saying anything to them, they just lost interest. We went to watch Ant-Man Quantumania, and that was trash. And this is a funny old review. It's not really a review other than talking about how this movie felt like phase 1 and 2 and 3, and it felt good again. And yeah, the humor wasn't ridiculous, you know. I saw a bunch of my favorite people, you know, the Critical Drinker, Tyrone Magnus, Layman's Journal. I saw a bunch of people that normally go out of their way to hate these kinds of films, all the Marvel films, and all their titles were like, this surprised me, this shocked me, the movie was good, one of the best Marvel films. I was like, wow, these guys enjoyed this film? All right, I got to get my family, I got to get my sisters, like it was back in the days. I got to try and drag them along, and it wasn't easy, I'll tell you that. They were like, this looks stupid. Why is Pedro Pascal, this is what my family said, this looks stupid. Why is Pedro Pascal Reed Richards? Is this a joke? Is this an SNL skit? These are literal things that my sisters and my fiance said and stuff, you know. And it's like, oh, why is Sue Storm pregnant? She's like trying to make her girl boss and will be pregnant and fighting bad guys. What is all this? They didn't like the trailers. I didn't like the trailers, really, you know? Same with Superman. I didn't like the trailers, and I enjoyed Superman. This was better than Superman. And I was like, no, people that I trust, people that would have been ripping the trailers, I've said this is good. So if they're saying this is good, there's got to be something going on here, and I'm going to risk it and make you guys come with me, and you can all blame me if it's trash at the end. And thank God the movie wasn't trash. We enjoyed it. It even made my fiance tear up at the end a little bit. She teared up at the end. And I was shocked, man. At first I was watching it, I was like, right, let's see what the fuss is about. It was a bit slow to start. I could sort of see why people were liking it. I could feel the somewhat serious tone, even though it had a very quirky, goofy kind of 1960s retro future element to it, with Mole Man and all these silly characters and all these very cartoony, you know, the Fantastic Car and all this stuff was happening. I was like, oh God, where's this gonna go? My dad's gonna be like, why do you still watch all these childish things? I was like, oh God, where's this gonna go? But even my dad enjoyed it. He didn't even fall asleep. So Pedro Pascal was really good in this. I think he really sold Reed Richards' burden of being the most intelligent man in the world, and how he has all this responsibility, and he felt like the lead, and he didn't joke around. He was very serious. I don't even know if he had one joke in the whole movie, which is amazing, you know. I don't know if that's because it's Pedro, because I don't actually see Pedro as that much of a jokey actor anyway, so I don't know if that's just because it's him. Even Johnny Storm was probably a little lackluster in the jokes area. I mean, you've got to have comic relief characters, and the problem with Marvel is not that comedy is bad or that comic relief is bad. It's that Marvel makes everybody comic relief. And Johnny Storm, if everybody was serious and he was the funny one, it makes Johnny stand out even more. It makes his humor even better, you know. But if everybody's funny, then no one's funny, and it's annoying. And that's what the MCU does. Everyone, even Black Widow, as serious as she is, had to crack jokes every now and then. And I like the Black Widow sections of the MCU when she's involved, you know. We just kind of tolerated the humor back then. Even Josh Whedon's version of Captain, I've noticed. Anyway, let me not go on a tangent. Right. So Pedro Pascal did really good in this. Vanessa Kirby was great. They all had decent chemistry. Some people thought they didn't have that great chemistry in their reviews, but I thought they had pretty decent chemistry. The Thing being not the gruff, you know, tough thing that he is, like in the previous incarnations in the cartoons and the comics, it kind of worked. It kind of gave him quite a bit of humanity, considering he's a rock man. So it kind of helped. So even though I was criticizing that in my trailer reactions, it worked for the movie, you know, and he still did badass things and knocking stuff and being a big friend. He's just being a big friendly giant, and it works for it. The way the guy, I call him Micro from The Punisher, he made it work. So yeah, I love the retro future vibes. That was really cool, the 1960s future. I like that. It very much helps you differentiate from the MCU proper, because we're obviously in another universe, we're in another dimension or another version of Earth, not 616828, I believe it is. I don't know. It's 8 something, right? And I loved it as well because they were able to establish that the Fantastic Four in this universe were the only superheroes, as far as we can tell. They're like the only heroes. The whole world has to rely on them. They are essentially the legends of that world. They are 4 Elon Musks that people actually like. I know people don't like it, but like if Elon Musk had like the ability to save us all, because it feels like he would have it for some reason, but we don't like him in real life apparently. I mean, I don't mind him, you know, he's up and down, but yeah. So the Fantastic Four was Elon Musk if everyone liked him. And so yeah, and even more popular than that, to be honest. Put Elon Musk and the Beatles together or something, right? And that was kind of cool to establish that about them. They were Earth's heroes. So then when the storyline came up about, we're probably going to start getting to spoilers now, with Franklin Richards and everything, and the bargain that they had to do, the choice they were presented with by Galactus, give me Franklin Richards or your Earth is gone. That was amazing. I loved that. I loved how they grappled with that. I loved the drama that came from that. That really elevated the film. And they didn't make a joke about it at all, which was really good. And yeah, the guy that played Galactus was really good. The guy is the guy from Game of Thrones. He's one of the Iron Islands guys. I can't remember his name now. Ralph Inez or something like that. And his voice was really cool. I was a bit worried about Galactus, especially when you're watching this stuff with your family that doesn't usually watch Marvel films, especially your dad. And you see this big giant cartoony monster, you wonder if he's gonna get it, but no, it worked because they took Galactus seriously. He was a big, imposing, scary villain because he was taken seriously, because the Fantastic Four reacted to him as they should. They were afraid of him. They weren't making quips or jokes or making fun of how big and stupid he looks or anything like that. They were scared, and it sold it, and that really helped the film as well. It made Galactus feel like a real threat. And I know some people didn't have much believability of Sue Storm being able to hold him back like she did, but even my dad whispered to me while we were watching that scene. My dad said to me, "A woman scorned." That's what he said to me. He said, "A woman scorned," because he understood it's about the baby. When a woman is in protection mode, she has the strengths of the gods, and Sue's a superhero, so it's double that or quadruple, whatever that, because there's the whole, I don't know if it's a myth or if it's a truth, but it's still interesting to think about the idea that a woman would be able to lift up a car to protect her baby, if her baby's stuck underneath it or whatnot, because she'll just suddenly get that strength. That felt like a nod to that kind of thing, which made me appreciate and like that scene. And plus, spoilers again, I tell you, this is spoilers time now. Plus, she literally dies at the end. She died from doing that. So they showed you the consequences of having that much power in order to push Galactus back, a whole Galactus. And Sue Storm ain't no joke. She's quite powerful in the comics anyway. When they did Sue's death, it was dead silent. That was when my fiance started tearing up a little bit. She was relating to that a little bit because she's an auntie, and it was a very dark moment. And I was kind of like just watching it like that, because they're not going to kill off Sue Storm. I was just waiting for how she's going to be brought back or whatever they're going to do. If they killed her off for the whole film and she's just dead, and obviously they bring her back later in a separate universe, kind of like Gamora in Infinity War, then I would have actually been like, okay, that's pretty brave. I mean, it's brave for the MCU because characters never just truly stay dead unless you're Uncle Ben. If they had managed to kill her off for the whole film and leave her dead until they get her from another universe or somehow revive her later on, then I would have been like, that's pretty impressive for the MCU. But yeah, Franklin brought her back to life. That was predictable. You knew that was going to happen, but it was really sweet the way they did it. And sometimes predictability is fine. It's okay. I love the tone. Can MCU please go back to this tone? Now, could there have been a little bit more humor with Johnny Storm? Maybe he could have been a bit more funny with his womanizing and all that, but we're in a different time now where people can't handle a man being assertive next to women, so I don't know. I guess there could be other stuff he could be funny with. Now I'm actually asking for more humor from a Marvel film, but only when it's appropriate and only when it's appropriate to the character doing it. It's not that hard, it's not that hard. Now, talking humor, we can talk about the things I disliked about this film now. Which is not that much. I mostly loved this film. I thought this was better than Superman, and I enjoyed James Gunn's Superman, But yeah, talking about the stuff I didn't really like, there was one moment where the humor kind of ruined the film, and that was when Reed Richards was getting stretched to an inch of his life. It was almost horrific. He looked like he was going to get ripped apart. It was like Pedro Pascal always gets the most horrific scenes in Game of Thrones with the mountain and The Last of Us. He becomes victim to a golf club. We know what happens there. If you know, you know. And now in this, he was about to get ripped horrifically by the Galactus of all people, And that was one of the most darkest scenes in MCU. And then all of a sudden you have Johnny and the Thing flying in, and then Johnny's like, what time is it? Trying to set up the whole clobbering time thing. And at least in my audience, it kind of fell flat. No one laughed or cheered or anything. It was just kind of like, okay, when he said, it's clobbering time, and then he hit Galactus and saved Reed, right? But it was just like, this is such a harrowing moment. I would rather Johnny, at this moment in time, I'd rather Johnny and the Thing be like, Reed, like scared, terrified that he's going to get rid of the part. That would have added so much horror to the scene if they were more concerned about Reed's health and his safety rather than concerned about cracking a joke and trying to make... because what that implies when they're cracking jokes like that in that kind of scenario means they're not even worried about Reed, which means the situation is not that dire to them. Like, these guys have been 4 years in the game before the start of the film, and they've already fought so many bad guys. They're already world heroes. They're loved all around the world. So they've had their experiences of fighting these kind of guys. So they probably thought, well, we're going to save him. We've done this before. So then if they're not concerned about Reed, we're not concerned about Reed in that moment in time. So it took all the wind in the sails of how intense that moment was. And that's what frustrated me about that scene. And that was even though this film was excellent with the humor and the tone throughout the whole film, that moment was the one epitome moment of showing how annoying it is with the MCU humor, you know? That's the one, they did it one time that was really annoying in this film, and that they could have left that, they could have made that a bit more intense. So they could have said, the clobbering scene, the whole, you know, Chekhov's gun of the clobbering time thing, where we're gonna say, the thing has to say it's clobbering time. They could have saved that for something else. Maybe when they're trying to push Galactus back into the black hole, though obviously the Thing wasn't involved in that scene, but they could have made him involved if they wanted to. They had to give that to the female Silver Surfer. And what a nice segue to talk about the female Silver Surfer. And how did I feel about her? There was a lot of controversy, mostly from like someone like Nerdrotic, who was really upset about the female Silver Surfer, Shala Bal. We needed Norrin Rad in this. We needed Norrin Rad, even though we've already had Norrin Rad in the Rise of the Silver Surfer. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm the first person to complain about race swaps and gender swaps. I hate that shit, you know, especially when it's iconic characters. And I think Norrin Rad is pretty, he's getting to iconic. He's pretty legendary character, you know, the Silver Surfer. And especially with the storyline of the Herald of Galactus coming to face the Fantastic Four and, you know, devour the Earth and all that kind of shit. So yeah, I understand the frustration of Shala Bal, but here's the thing. This is an alternate reality, an alternate universe. I said this one in my previous videos. She's probably going to die when she gets sent into a black hole in this. Spoilers. You should know this by now. She gets sent into a black hole in this, and we're probably going to get Norrin Rad, male Silver Surfer proper when we get to the proper MCU. Though what's sad about this is I kind of like this version of the Marvel Universe. It feels like it's more serious. It feels like it's more grounded, dare I say. It's not grounded because it's a retro 60s future and they've got this weird cartoony technology. But the tone feels more grounded. The world feels more real. The world feels more believable in a weird way than the proper MCU where everyone's silly and everyone's joking and everyone's got tech and everyone's super intelligent and everyone, you know, like it just feels like only Reed and maybe his family are kind of intelligent in this world, you know. And I was all kind of like, I kind of want to be in this universe rather than the MCU proper, you know. But anyway, they're obviously going to come to the MCU proper. So yeah, so when we go to the MCU proper, we're going to get proper Norrin Rad, you know. But here's my issue with that though. That's fine if you want to save Norrin Rad for the MCU proper. But now that you've done the Herald of Galactus storyline, we can never have Norrin Rad in that storyline. We could just have Norrin Rad be there. To be fair, I'm not super well versed in the comics. I haven't read all the Silver Surfer comics and all that. I don't know all the stuff that Silver Surfer's involved with in the comic books. But the main things that I do know, which is the battle against Thanos for the Infinity Stones and him, Norrin Rad, being a Herald of Galactus coming to take over the Earth with not take over the Earth, but to prepare the Earth for devourment. Is that a word? I don't know. So those are the two main things I know Norrin Rad for, and he wasn't involved with the Thanos arc. We've already seen that. They're not going to go through that again for another 20 years, you'd think. They might do these days. And we've seen his main storyline already played out to a T with Shala Bal. So now, what does Norrin Rad do? That's my only issue with it, you know? Like, maybe you should have probably just had Norrin Rad, because at least you get to see his iconic story play out, and then we could have a different Norrin Rad. But now we had to have Shala Bal, maybe to differentiate it from Rise of the Silver Surfer, maybe to give Johnny Storm like a kind of dynamic with her, you know, different from the Rise of the Silver Surfer. Whereas in the Rise of the Silver Surfer, Johnny Storm thought he was cool. In this, he thinks she's hot. No pun intended there with the cool and hot, but yeah. That's my thoughts on this female Silver Surfer being involved in, so I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it is a shame that Norrin Radd's main storylines have been taken from him, and I don't know what they're going to do with him now. Like, I know there's, you comic fans, you guys that are way more well-versed in the comics, you tell me what they can do with Norrin Radd now instead. And I don't really want to see Charlotte Bala again, unless she's being literally going to play Norrin Radd's wife like she's supposed to be, you know? In terms of how she was in the movie, she was okay. I still prefer the male one in Rise of the Silver Surfer, not just because he's male, but because, or more accurate, but because he's just better in that film. He's more cooler, he does more stuff, he fights the military, he fights Johnny Storm, he fights a little bit Doctor Doom. He just does so much more in that film, you know. I guess it's more about him because Galactus just only comes at the end of that film, a big cloud of Galactus. But this one was kind of more about the Fantastic Four, establishing them and what their dynamic, and a bit more of Galactus. Speaking of Galactus, I did love the way he came to the Earth and he was just walking around like this. It felt like an old monster movie from like the old Japanese monster movies, kaiju movies or something, where he's just picking up all this stuff and just looking at the Statue of Liberty, and it felt very ethereal. And that's one of the moments I was talking about where Johnny was looking at it and he was just hiding, and he could have made a one-liner quip there, but he didn't. They just left that moment to be in awe of Galactus's presence on this world, and it just, all of that just felt incredible. God, I loved how, I just can't get over how they just let things play out without having to make a joke. I just can't go over that. And that's one of the reasons why I liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I mean, Captain America Brave New World. Even though a lot of people didn't like that film, they thought it was a bit bland, I still enjoyed that it wasn't over the top humorous. And you got to admit, with what they tried to do with Brave New World and removing the humor, Thunderbolts, the storyline of Thunderbolts was really good, but the humor was too much in that film. So that ruined it for me. Obviously with Fantastic Four First Steps, I think the MCU is definitely course correcting right now in terms of, I don't know about the wokeness stuff, but the humor, you know, and it seems like they're trying to fix things now. So hopefully they can keep this up. But yeah, I was trying to talk about the female Silver Surfer. She was just okay. You know, there's nothing really interesting about her that much. I mean, I liked her dynamic with Johnny Storm a little bit, but it was very subtle and light. And she just served their purpose. She wasn't that important, you know. I know some people had an issue with Sue Storm giving birth on the ship. Both my sisters and my fiance all thought it was a bit silly how she was giving birth on the ship. Like, why is she coming on the ship? She should be at home, you know, rest. These are women thoughts, you know, and I've seen some other guys think this too. She should be at home resting, you know, like, and the way I interpreted it was, look, the Fantastic Four are literally the only heroes on the planet, you know. Reed, Johnny, and the Thing can only do so much on their own. They don't know what they're up against. They need Sue. Sue is needed. It's not that she has to be there. Sue is needed, you know, and only she can decide if she's going to go or not. You can't really have the boys tell her, you got to come with us, because then it looks like, you know, looks like they're insensitive arseholes then. You can't win. So, and then they showed how she was needed while she was giving birth, and also at the same time, you know, protecting the ship, cloaking the ship or whatever she was doing that time. I didn't hate that part. I understand people's criticisms on why is a pregnant woman going to space to fight, but I kind of thought it was badass. I kind of thought, yeah, like, pregnant women can fight and do stuff, like, because they show all the time, like, people always go on about how pregnant women can do things still, and it's cool when they can still do things and be pregnant at the same time. But, you know, she's a superhero. She's not just, if it was like a normal person like Black Widow or someone being pregnant and also going to fight Thanos or something, that would be ridiculous. But she's got powers, so she can probably handle it, you know. So I didn't mind that too much. Yeah, it was a great movie. I'll give it, God, I feel like I give everything an 8 out of 10. I'll give it like a 7, because I didn't like the casting of Pedro Pascal, but he really fucking grew on me, man. Like, with his silly moustache and everything, he really grew on me. Like, his acting ability just shone through, and he passes for Reed Richards. Like, he kind of can resemble him. He's got the grey black hair. You know, he's white passing, you know, like it can work, you know. It doesn't, as long as you don't keep going on about my heritage or whatever, like he can play any. My rule for casting has always been, do you look the part and can you act? And he doesn't really look the part of Reed Richards, but he looks the part enough, you know, and he can act clearly, like he's great. So in terms of acting ability, so it worked. So yeah, Fantastic Four First Steps. I enjoyed the movie. What did you guys think? I hope this is, I'm not going to say Marvel is back, because we always say Marvel is back when a half decent Marvel movie comes out, like Deadpool, Wolverine, Spider-Man No Way Home, and some people think Thunderbolts meant Marvel was back, and this now. But no, for Marvel to be back, they have to be consistently great. They have to be like how they were in phase 1 to phase 3, you know. They have to have at least like consistently, it's not just about even having good movies, they have to make sense as well within the plot, the overall plot. The amount of after credit scenes that they've had that haven't amounted to anything right now, it's all jumbled mess right now. There's so many after credit scenes we've had that didn't, even the Thunderbolts after credit scene where it showed the Fantastic Four, didn't even, coming into the MCU universe, didn't even happen in this movie. Not even in their after credit scene. You saw Doctor Doom at the end of the movie, and it's like, there's no connection there. That we should have seen that scene in this movie. It had no connection whatsoever. Like, I don't know what's going on. So it's not just about having good films. If you're going to tell a whole overarching story with all your films and they're all connected, then you got to somehow connect them. But they're not connected. They're all just jumbled. And that leads me to my final point before I end this video, is that what they could have done with this film. Now look, I'm all happy for the happy ending. The happy ending was nice, you know, Sue surviving, everyone's happy, they're heroes, they protected their world, they did well. But I think a darker ending would have been really good and showed the power of Galactus as well. Maybe Galactus wins. Maybe Galactus does devour their Earth and the Fantastic Four are forced to escape, you know, with this deep regret and pain that they couldn't protect their world, and they vow to protect this new one that they've come into, which is the MCU proper. You know, that could have been a really harrowing and powerful ending. It could have given a bad guy another win, because bad guys, as much as good guys are always supposed to win, bad guys sometimes need to win to just show how dominant and scary they are, like how Thanos won in Infinity War, you know. And that version of Thanos kind of always won because they had to go fight the shittier version that hadn't got the stones yet. So Thanos technically won in his reality, you know. But yeah, so I think that was a missed opportunity. I think they could have, instead of just doing the generic happy ending, they could have merged these films together and showed them coming to the MCU. And yeah, maybe it does avoid having them win happily like this, does avoid the whole criticism of, oh, universes is an excuse. When you have separate universes, you can do anything you want and there's no stakes anymore, blah 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 blah. I don't mind there being like a way out situation because you have separate universes, when you get to see the power of the villains because of that. Because it's either we just have a villain win and the whole storyline gets ended, or there's a way out for our heroes to have a chance to come back again another day. And you can't have both. It's a tough one. It's a tough call. But I would have gone with just let them have their universe destroyed, because we're probably not going to come back to this universe. We might do, but we'll see now. Now I'm curious to see how the Fantastic Four end up on the MCU, because they're obviously going to end up in the MCU at some point, like MCU 616 proper, you know? So I thought we'll see that in this film. We didn't. Weird, but yeah, interesting. Anyway, that is my Fantastic Four First Steps review. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again soon. Peace.